Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Now, I've finally finished this book. I didn't really want to rush this book, but I feel like I've rushed kind of the ending, and maybe the beginning, but anyway. First of all, I'll go into the sort of aesthetics of this book and what I think of that, and then the story. So we've got John Hurt as the War Doctor. We've got two Daleks there. Bronze sort of Dalek, another Dalek with the energy weapon, a big Bolt and Moldox in the background. You've got Engines of War, you've got the Seal of Rassilon on both sides. You've kind of got it in the design of the sort of table thing from Day of the Doctor. George Manning, some Dalek saucers all around. What else? War changes everyone, even the Doctor. You've got that. BBC there, BBC, Doctor Who, DW sort of logo there. BBC Books, because they always like reminding you, George Mann, the same sort of thing there, DW. Then you've only got this bit on the back, no more, written into the wall, sort of the TARDIS crash landing onto Moldox, and then you've got the Day of the Doctor quote, "I've had many faces, many lives, I don't admit to all of them. There's one life I've tried very hard to forget, the Doctor who fought in the Time War." Then you just got the barcode at the bottom. Then you've got one last thing, you've got like a blurb sort of description thing there, and you've got the price there, which is £12.99 in the UK apparently. Then you've got like notes, writer's notes I think. So on to what I thought of the story. It is a fantastic story. I've literally just today finished it. Reading it, just absolutely fantastic. I can't really remember much of the beginning, but I think I'll just go into a few of the negatives, particularly on the sort of packaging. Or the aesthetic of the book. I don't particularly like the fact that the blurb on the back. I'd have much preferred the blurb on the back, and this quote is it is not irrelevant, but I'd have not liked this quote. I'd have just preferred the blurb on the back personally, but and maybe a lot more different sort of imagery and stuff on the back. It's very plain, very boring, I guess, compared to the front cover, which is so amazing. And then you get the back, which is very plain. You've also got him with the sonic screwdriver. Anyway, so that's my only major gripe with the sort of packaging or the design of the book. My only gripe with the story, from what I can remember of the story, is at the beginning there is quite a few sort of saucer sort of spaceship battles, which are pretty cool, but I felt like they always got really rushed and were really quick and really done very quickly. But that might have just been because I read that part of the book very quickly. I can't remember, but yeah, that's literally my only gripe with the book. Aside from that, it's so varied in locations that you go to. You're not just on Gallifrey, you're on Moldox at first. Another gripe, before I get into all my positives, my only other gripe is that it is a bit slow starting. Now, that might deter some people away from this book. That might be a deterrent, which is a terrible thing, because when you get over that little bit of very slow starting of the book, it really picks up pace, and it really builds, it slowly builds sort of these characters, Cinder, who I'll get in more in a bit, but, later on, there's more action, there's more emotion, there's much more action and sort of emotion in those sort of bits, because at the beginning you feel like, that this character, or you don't know the character, but by later on you feel like you know the character because of the development in the beginning, is what I'm saying. So it might feel slow and not very action-packed right at the beginning in certain bits, but it will get more sort of action-packed and stuff like that. Like, it's not even that action-packed of a book, I don't think. It's just there's so many good bits of sort of dialogue and iconic parts. It's brimming with stuff for both Doctor Who fans and non-Doctor Who fans, just people who are quite interested in the Time War. The best way of describing this book, I think, for someone who's not actually read this book and for whatever reason hasn't seen any of Day of the Doctor, Night of the Doctor, or anything with John Hurt's War Doctor, and has only just started with the first series and has seen the whole first series, it's like the whole first new series in a book, with John Hurt's Doctor as the Doctor. And he doesn't feel like he's just specifically War Doctor-like. He feels very a mixture between sort of the War Doctor and the Doctor. Like he's a mixture of that, if that makes sense. Like he's got that sort of war-torn sort of thing about him, but he's also got this Doctor-like thing behind that. And stuff. Like, what I mean by that is I can imagine every line that the War Doctor says, I can imagine John Hurt actually saying in a TV version or a Big Finish version of this book. And that's what I like about his character in this. Cinder, she's phenomenal. You know, I really felt sad in later bits. This is a spoiler-free review, so, you know, I'm not going to be spoiling anything, but later on I felt so devastated for her character and stuff, and whatnot. You know, there's lots of parts where she's in, you know, like, there's just so much tension and drama, and, you know, as I said in my last, you know, my Big Finish review of the last Ninth Doctor Big Finish story, you know, Doctor Who excels when, you know, it's ethical, moral decisions and storytelling, and this is brimming with stuff like that, and it makes it all the more sort of, you know, jaw-dropping, you know, and unput-downable, you know, for a book. You know, it really did hook me in. I felt for these characters, for the War Doctor, for, you know, Cinder and her friends and her characters. We see so many different things about the Daleks. You know, we see the degradation Daleks. We see the paradigm-based Daleks. We find out when the Time War started. You know, we see there's so many sort of links between the past and pushing sort of the mythology and or the Dalek mythology into the future, and it's just fantastic. You know, if I was to like put this in perspective where I think it goes in the timeline, it's just literally between sort of like Doctor Who and the movie and sort of the Doctor Who the movie 1996 movie and the sort of first series. I just stick it slap bang in the middle of there, sort of that sort of time, and stuff maybe. But yeah, it's just amazing. I'm still trying to digest the ending and the end sort of scenes in my head. There's, you know, there's the Death Zone stuff about the Five Doctors, but it's not the same sort of Death Zone, so even if you've seen Five Doctors, you know, don't be thinking, oh, it's the same place. It's very different in a good way. Barusa's there. Rassilon's in this book. You know, you see his very dark, maniacal, sort of ethereal, sort of totalitarian dictator-like side of him, you know, and you kind of get why the Doctor hates his own people, because they really are, you know, to face the enemy that are the Daleks, which are disgusting, horrible creatures. It's as though the Doctor's people, the Time Lords, must be sort of, you know, need to one-up the Daleks in sort of disgusting, putrid, horrific ways of destroying the enemy, and what they're doing they think's good, but the Doctor's stuck in the middle and can basically see from afar that both sides are just stupid and sort of just as bad as one another, and that, and yeah, it's horrific, you know, and there's so many sort of moral and ethical dilemmas for, you know, our main two characters being Cinder and the Doctor. And now this is one thing that I found the sort of book to do somewhat better sometimes than the new series. It's sort of focused on both the companion and the Doctor equally. I feel like sometimes anyway, not always, but in some stories in the new series, it either, you know, depicts the Doctor too much and not enough on the companion, or too much on the companion and not enough on the Doctor. Like, there's never an equal balance. I find in some sort of stories, or in a lot of stories in the new series. But this one felt very much more balanced, you know. Like, Cinder would be saying something and kind of, you know, would be getting, you know, sort of descriptions about what she's thinking and how she's feeling and stuff. And then, you know, you'd get the Doctor kind of doing an action, you know, kind of like holding a hand and then saying, it's okay, you know. And then him, like, then, you know, moving forward in the TARDIS console and flickering some stuff and then having to leave or go somewhere, and then she'd be saying stuff. You know, it never felt like it focused on one particular main character more than the other. Like, So I felt like they were equal in that respect. The you see more of the War Doctor's sort of TARDIS, and I like that how that's kind of interpreted in the imagination because it's in book form. I like how he mentions that the sort of TARDIS doesn't approve of weapons. There's just so much fan service and just so many little nitpicky, little well, not nitpicky, but little Easter eggs in here. Little things that will make fans just be like, oh yes, I get that, or yes, that makes sense, and stuff like that. Like, there's so much passion and care put into this book, and I think it really does sort of shine through this book that there's so much care and passion in this book. So many little Easter eggs and little things where fans will be like, oh yeah, I remember that episode, I remember that happening all those years ago, and that then tying in with this and that, and it's just fantastic. I even like the little bits where, just the little descriptions of, the Sonic, or that is putting it into that sort of like like strap thing that he has across his chest, just the little descriptions like that, or how battered his coat is, like, I'm dyslexic, and I find this book very unlike most books. I found it very easy to read because it was so, the writer, George Manning, would write it in such a way that even I could envision it. Like, instead of just saying, oh, the coat was brown, he'd say, the coat was very dark and very textured and weathered and beaten down and stuff like that, and like, it'd give me more to go on than just it was brown, and stuff. And the Daleks are just dark and maniacal and evil. They are really on top form. So are the Time Lords when they're being dark and evil. And it's just all round a fantastic book. There's only, as I say, the fact that the beginning's a bit slow to start with, and the space battles at the beginning, I found those to go a bit quick. Those are my only two major gripes with this book, and the aesthetic. But aside from that, I'd give it a well-earned 9 out of 10. It is a phenomenal book, a must-have for any fan of Doctor Who, and a must-have for any fan who wants to know more about the Time War, more about the War Doctor and his sort of emotional and physical journey through what I consider hell on Earth, which is the Time War. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe.